Hi, and welcome to Creatives on Speed, where we talk to creative thinkers, makers, and doers about their life, their work, and their inspirations. And I'm really delighted to have the amazing Freya Haines on the show today. Hi, Freya.
Hello.
Hi, Freya is a hairdresser. She's in fact my hairdresser, full disclosure. But I also know she's a really talented, really creative person generally. So I really wanted to get her on to talk a little bit more about that. So tell us about your work as a hairdresser.
Yeah, so thanks ever so much for having me on Faster Ideas. Very excited. So I'm a hairdresser by day. Have been for a very long time. I started hairdressing when I was like 13. I started in a salon, so
Yeah.
20 years. Oh my God. But yeah, hairdresser by day, which I love. And then by night, well, once upon a time I was a clubber. So music is obviously another big passion of mine. But more recently, like yoga, meditation, finding pause and kind of calm in the madness that the world is going in.
So you mentioned there you started hairdressing when you were 13. I mean, obviously, hairdressing is quite a creative industry, and we'll come into talking about that because I know we both got some views on that. And but what part did creativity play in your life growing up? Around that and other things that you were getting up to.
Yeah, so my grandmother grew up with us, and she was very artistic. Like, she wasn't an artist, but she always used to paint and draw. And actually, her, I think, great grandfather was Wilhelm Marstrand, who was like a
Wow.
famous Danish painter. I was looking him up just just to double check everything before. But yeah, so there was always like a lot of, I guess there was always a lot of like kind of creative atmosphere in our like house growing up. Like, we were encouraged to like be musical as well. We all played piano, of which I never quite mastered. I was always like we were all forced to play the piano. And I got it eventually, but it was always a bit of a struggle to kind of get me to practice and stuff. But I have very fond memories of being in my grandma's room every night playing piano, and her kind of like timing me and stuff. So, and then, I think my parents were like, they were both in education, but they were both quite like into their music. And so, it was, and we were always encouraged to be very creative and very open. It was never like academic was kind of like, we were encouraged to be good at school, but it was always like in a very natural, creative way. And we've all kind of followed our passions. In our kind of careers as well, so whether it be sport or design or hairdressing like myself. So I think it probably played a big part in my childhood. And I'm very, when I look back, I think, oh yeah, like that's going to be that obviously kind of stuck with me as an adult.
Yeah. So then when you moved into hairdressing, what drew you to the industry?
Well, it was really like by complete and utter fluke. So I used to comb my mum's hair out. So my mum always used to have really long hair. And so she used to wash her hair at night, and then I used to comb her knots out and then like used to just dry it with the hairdryer. And I was never a girly girl at all. Like, my sister, who's the eldest, was always like the really girly girl. I was like a proper tomboy, always had short hair, was always climbing trees, hated when she put makeup on me. And it was a trip to the hairdressers that I went with my mum one day, and she mentioned to the owner of the salon that I'd been helping her dry her hair, and she was really good, and blah, blah, blah. And the lady who owned the shop was just like, oh, do you want a job? And I was 13. It was like, do you want a Saturday job? And I was like, yeah, okay then. Like, it was, 20 years ago when like we could have Saturday jobs.
Yeah.
So I started at the hair gallery in Tiptree in Essex at the age of 13, going on 14. Washing hair, and that's how I kind of got into the salon environment. And I always said I'd never be a hairdresser. Like, it was just like what the kind of, to be like quite rude, a bit like what the girls that didn't want to study, like they would just go into hairdressing. I definitely knew I didn't want to be that, but I always knew I wanted to do something creative. So it wasn't till later on when I had studied creative A levels and then was doing a foundation degree in fashion and textiles that I met a really great group of people, and we kind of all used to meet up and do photo shoots and that's when I used to do the hair, and there was one that used to do the makeup, and there was someone else who used to do the styling, and another one doing the photography. So that was when I discovered, I was like, okay, I want to do hair. And so that was when I was about 20, and I came to London and began my hairdressing career properly, even if I'd been doing it for 7 years already at that point.
Yeah. And what was it about hair and cutting hair, colouring hair, playing with people's hair that really excited you?
So in my art, when I was studying art at school and college, I always used to be like, it was always kind of sculpture that was my main kind of medium. So hair for me is really sculpture. So before I started any of my formal training in London, all the kind of hair that I'd done in the salon in Essex was literally just, I'd been watching somebody do hair and I just copied them. I hadn't had any formal training. Like they just were like, okay, put a tint on or do some highlights. And then the cutting was really just about sculpting. And then the color was really about painting and kind of creating like depth and light and enhancing one's kind of beauty, I guess. But I guess for me, like, I love being in a salon. I love the interaction with people. I love the relationships you build with clients, which even now is like one of my main kind of, I guess, USPs in a way. Like, I think that's probably, obviously the hair is a big part of it, but it's the relationships I've built with clients like yourself that keep me kind of excited, and the hair and the painting and the sculpture part of it is the really fun part. But all the kind of relationships you build, they're still like creative. It's still a creative outlet when you'll be able to talk to people and you're talking to so many different people from such a broad range of, you know, where they're from or what they do. And that for me like really drives me and like kind of gets me inspired as well for my work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all those things you said, and it's like when you go to a hairdresser and you put your trust in them, and it becomes like a collaboration, a creative collaboration, because you're, as a hairdresser, trying to learn about them, what their needs are, who they are, and all that, and they're trying to express themselves to you in terms of what they want their look to be. And I think
expressing yourself is like, that is like really what every hairdresser wants to achieve, is to like allow that client to like express themselves through their hair. And like, so when that person comes in and they're feeling a bit like low and flat and like, and their hair's looking a mess, but you know, like within 3 hours, like you've painted their hair and you've cut it a certain way, and you see the smile on their face and they leave and you're like, wow, you know, like, so it's about expressing who you are through your hair. Like even like with my hair, like having short hair, that's like, everyone knows that's me. I mean, I've had it long and I've had it dark and I've had it copper, but people think of me and they're like, whenever I cut my hair short again, they're like, oh yeah, like Freya's back, you know. It's such a huge part of who we are. Like I think that like the industry is probably not respected. I think the lockdown probably helped, like lockdown one. I think that people really felt that like disconnection from being able to like feel good about themselves by having their hair done. And I think everyone, like of all ages, of all races, all understood, like if they hadn't done before, that hair is their biggest way of like kind of making themselves feel presentable and expressing who they truly are. And so yeah, as a hairdresser, I feel very privileged that I get to do that, to work that magic and give that person that confidence to go out and kind of go, this is who I am and this is how I wear my hair.
Yeah, because I think that I completely agree. I don't think hairdressing as an industry gets the credit it deserves. And I don't think that, I think some people don't think of it as a creative industry in some respects, which I find really, really annoying. Because, you know, there's, as you said, what you're doing with your clients is you're allowing them to express themselves, make them smile in the same way they would if they went and looked at a beautiful painting or painted it themselves and that gave them a really good feeling. It's art, really. You're creating something new that wasn't there before. You know, something of beauty. So talking of art, I just happened to notice the painting that you've got in the background there.
Oh yes,
please tell us more about that.
So we've lived in this flat for like 8 years, and I've always said that this wonderfully big white wall needs a bit of canvas on it and a bit of art. And my husband's been like, will you just paint the picture already, you know? But having been so busy with work and everything, like over the years, and just never quite finding that time or inspiration, lockdown one last year was, it kind of just was like, right, now is the time. Like you've just got to do it. Just order the canvas and everything. So this was a kind of, it grew over time, but it was completed on the birth of my nephew. So it's a kind of expression of his birth. So it was a celebratory evening, lots of drink, lots of music, and like we put some music on, and I just kind of completed it. So yeah, it's it took many different forms before it got to that, but essentially I put it up. I said, okay, that's Arlo's birth in picture form, in paint form.
It's acrylic, and
it's acrylic, yeah.
Okay.
So I wanted to create some texture in it, so I primed the canvas with gesso, and kind of more so in the middle. I don't know if you can really see it, but kind of in this area, there's quite a lot of texture in it. And then I painted it with various different colors, and I was mixing and smudging, and then the kind of white flecks that you see are where I've wiped the paint away.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and I signed it with a little initial of Arlo. His name's Arlo Blue, so I signed it with his initial. So it's really, he made this art.
Oh, that's beautiful. And also, like, I mean, it's so wonderfully colourful and inspiring. And you know, you're really huge into your colour, and you've changed my hair colour many times. But you know, what is it when you see a client comes in and you see the hair and it's a particular colour at that time? Do you have a kind of vision of how you like think that their hair colour should be? Is there kind of something about who they are or how they express themselves you think, oh, that, I know you would never enforce it on them, but you know, just in terms of like what their best hair could look like?
Yeah, I think it's probably more difficult nowadays because most of my clients are people that I've known for a very long time. So I guess at the beginning, no, for me, it's always been like a discussion and a kind of a collaboration of ideas. So I've never wanted to enforce anything on any of my clients. Although if a client has come to me with a certain idea that I don't think would suit them, or I think would be just, not something that I think they would get on well with, I would steer them in a slightly different direction. So I'm definitely not one of these hairdressers that's like, this is what you need and this is what's gonna like, just because I think that's just not the style that's not how I like to kind of come across. So for me, like the way that I see my clients and how I kind of build their confidence and how we kind of come to a color at the end is by collaboration, asking for their ideas, and also knowing my own limits and my own kind of skill set. So if somebody came to me and they wanted something that, like, I don't know, say for instance, like green, or like a certain color that I just wasn't comfortable with being able to achieve like in a beautiful way, then I would probably steer them to like maybe another stylist. So I think it's really about a collaboration as opposed to like a one size fits all, or like, and I think it has to come from the client, because I wouldn't ever want to feel like I've said, you'd look great with this color, and then they suddenly go, oh, or should I have that color? And then suddenly they're doubting themselves. And so for me, it's the client makes the first move, and then I can build on that. And then that's my way, I guess, of kind of making them feel comfortable and trust me. And then it might be more than what we've discussed, like, but it will always be something that the ideas come from them, and then I've elaborated from that.
Yeah, because you're then drawing on your experience of knowing what the color does and can do. I'd really like to know a little bit more about the process of color mixing. Actually, is it sort of more art than science, or do you have to think about like the chemical makeup, or do you have to think more about the sort of the layering of the colors? To sort of explain a bit how that works.
So the basics of color are to do with the color wheel. So you've got all your bases. So your bases are how light or dark your hair is. And then you've got all your tones. So your tones are your all your different colors. So you have, oh, you're testing me now, 8 tones. It depends on which what brand of color that you use. I've always used L'Oreal, which is a kind of, it's one of the most commonly used standardized like numerical system. So you've got 1 to 8 in tone. So to kind of skim over them, you've got one is oh my god, you're really testing me now. You know when you like to put in the spot, I'm like, oh my god, what is one? So 1 is blue, 2 is mauve, 3 is gold, 4 is copper, 5 is mahogany, 6 is red, 7 is green, 8 is mocha. So within those 8 tones, you can, some colors are mixed together. So you can have a golden copper. So, or you can even have opposite tones. You can have a cool tone, which is like an ash, like a blue ash, which is 1, but you can also have gold, which it put together is more like a beigey tone. So the basics are kind of like mixing paint on a palette, but the way that it's applied to hair and how each different hair type and hair color, natural hair color, responds to that color being put on the hair is scientific, fully science. Yeah. So everybody has natural undercoats in the hair. So everyone's hair lifts warm, okay? Like when you go in the sun, your hair becomes more golden. If you've got dark hair, your hair becomes more red. If you've got blonde hair, your hair becomes more yellow. So depending on where you are in the scale of light or dark hair, depends on how the sun or oxygen or peroxide, which is in color, lifts your hair. So you're always having to respond to that when you're coloring hair. So if you picked out a really cool brown in the shade chart, not that you've ever seen a shade chart with me.
No, that's very, very.
No,
it's all in your vast experience, which is very, very comforting. I don't have to make the choice.
No, because it's shade charts really should just be used for the stylists, as I believe, or people starting out. Like when you're training, you really need to use them. So so if you pick any color on the shade chart, and it was like, say it's like a 6.35, okay? That doesn't mean I'm going to put 6.35 on your hair. It might mean that I need to put like more 3 or more 5, or I need to add bits, or I need to take away bits in order to create that shade that you've chosen that you want on your hair type, okay? So it's more difficult when people want cooler shades, because hair naturally gives off warmth. Because that's our natural undercoat, and you'll always battle with that. So every single person that has their hair colored will always say, oh, it fades warm, it fades warm, it fades warm. And there's no get away from that. As soon as you've changed your chemical makeup of your hair by adding color, the undercoat will always come through, and that will always be a warm undercoat, because the ashy tones are artificial. Very few people have a blue undertone to their hair. So some Asian people have really dark hair, but their undertone is like a blue. So when you look at the strands of hair, you can actually see like glimmers of blue. So when you lift it, it's like, wow. That's when you see someone with like dark natural hair and it fades to like a white blonde, you know, like if they've had a balayage. So if they've had it dark and it goes to like white, I mean, there's like probably 1% of people with dark hair that have a blue undertone. That's when that can be achievable.
Is Instagram somewhere you get your inspirations, or where else do you go for like ideas if you're stuck for a way of working?
I think I mean, living in London, I've always taken a lot of inspiration just from street style, like just from people that I've seen in the street. Instagram is a great way to get inspiration, but I feel like it's just so saturated now, and people just post the same images over and over and over again. I used to use Pinterest quite a lot, and I do still, but again, that's like highly saturated. But it is a great visual start, isn't it, to you know, if I had a client that wasn't sure, they wanted something new, and they said to me, okay, I want balayage. I mean, balayage is just like, it's such a minefield. It's like, okay, you need to break down what kind of balayage you want. So I have got Pinterest boards that I have that are saved, a good reference point, which determines on how they want their balayage done. But I'm very fortunate because a lot of my clients know me, they trust me, and so it's really about conversation. I think more so now, things that inspire me are probably not as hair related, probably more so yoga, meditation, like positivity. Like that's what I'm wanting to kind of bring more of into my services. I feel like I've kind of, not that I'm stopping learning it with hairdressing, but I feel like I'm an expert of that now, and I can build on that, like kind of just as and when.
Well, you've got a little creation of your own that's due
well,
probably
that, yeah.
when this is going out. So how are you feeling about being a mum?
Yeah, I mean, awesome. I love being pregnant. I am very like connected to my body, and the first lockdown really allowed me the time to like stop and pause and do a lot more yoga and meditation and Reiki as well. I have this fantastic woman who does my Reiki, and I connected a lot with that. And just having that time to like stop, really just, it kind of set me like in a different creative field. Like it's like I don't really like the word spiritual, because I think it just seems a bit too wishy-washy, but I think I was able in my first lockdown to really connect to myself creatively, like within myself, but not in a kind of artistic way, and like a kind of in a spiritual way. And I think we all need a bit more of that. Like I feel like people have tapped into that a bit more, like with the pandemic and stuff. I feel like if you haven't, like you've probably just gone mad. Like I do you know what I mean? I just feel like if you haven't been able to like have some time to connect to yourself, like amongst all this madness, and you're just going to be going mad. So but yeah, I've loved pregnancy so far, and yeah, it's pretty awesome what our bodies can do. So yeah, I'm excited for the next few months to see how much bigger I get and what happens when it comes out.
Yeah. So where can people find you if they want to check you out?
So my hairdressing page is Freya _Claire _hair on Instagram. That's Claire without an I. And my other one is the Press Pause Movement, which is also on Instagram. So yeah, and I'm based at a place called Hunter Collective, which is in London. So if you do want to come for a haircut or colour with me, then I'm at Hunter Collective. But yeah, so that's where you can find me.
And we'll be putting all those links below in the show notes. So thanks. Thank you so much for your time, Freya. It's great to talk to you.
You're welcome.
I hope you have a great day.